Creative Constitution podcast. I'm joined by Saara Lamberg once again, and today's topic is creating original material. Hello, Sara. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, it's amazing to be back. Thanks, Deborah.
With original ideas, it's obviously such an important thing to make sure that you stay unique and you stand out from the crowd. But what does it mean to have an original idea for you?
Oh, ideas. I love ideas. I feel like ideas are my children because I don't have any actual children. And I'm sure any mother will now shoot me in their heads emotionally. But yeah, I care about them that much that I feel like, they're just, I really enjoy the process of creating ideas, coming up with lots of ideas, and then picking up the ones that are worth pursuing and then really committing time to making those ideas a reality, and in my case usually in the form of a film. And then so I care for that idea, and that idea doesn't really die when it's completed, because then there's the whole next phase of how to get my idea seen by other people, and the journey kind of continues. And that's why I so often compare my filmmaking to having children, because they're always with you, that there will always be something more to do. It's never completed. For as long as I'm alive, I'm sure I have to keep pushing these films forward. And keep supporting them, and sometimes they make me cry, but it's okay.
Yeah, for sure. What's your process like? You know, obviously creating an idea, that can mean so many different things. You know, you could be sitting at a park bench and an idea comes to you, or you could be forcing yourself based on limitations to come up with something. I want to make a movie about XYZ. How does that process kind of look for you?
I think best process is to do a little bit of both. Definitely utilize the ideas that you just get. And for me, they are often the first idea in my mind when I wake up in the morning. That can often be, or sometimes a really good idea can come in the shower, like in a place where you're really relaxed and sort of not necessarily even thinking about work actively.
Yeah.
Can be. But at the same time, it's so important not to just rely on those, because they don't necessarily come, or they don't necessarily happen often enough, or you might forget to write them down. Please don't forget to write them down, because if you don't write it down immediately when you get the idea, then it's gone.
They just vanish.
So gone.
I know.
So I have like hundreds of different notebooks. All around.
I've got mine right here as well.
my every bag has got a notebook, and desk is full of them. I guess you could also write them down on your phone. Sometimes I text myself a text message if I get an idea and I don't happen to have a notebook with me. But just as quickly as you get the idea, no matter how unformed it is, no matter how juvenile an idea it is, just write it down. Anything you can think of, just write it down. And I feel like that's your first point of difference from not having ideas to actually having something that you can start working with. Because I think if you think about your day, you could come up with 20 ideas during the day, but if you didn't think about writing them down, then they're gone, and then next day you start with nothing. So the writing down of them, that's just so important. But in terms of how to come up with them, I also like the idea of forced ideas. So just setting yourself a writing challenge of, for example, in 10 minutes now I have to come up with as many ideas as possible, and in that 10 minutes your pen cannot leave the paper. It just has to keep, it's almost like stream of consciousness kind of writing. And look, of course, in writing exercises like that, most of it that you will come up with is an utter and it will go, it will go out with the rubbish the same day. But if in that 10 minutes, or if within your 3 days of writing 10 minutes, if in that time there's one good idea that you can start working with, that's enough. Even if
That's brilliant.
within a month of doing that exercise 10 minutes a day, you get one good idea, that's enough. You just need one good idea. But you definitely won't find that idea unless you start writing them down, and unless you start in any way or form documenting it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even just like one idea a day is like 365 ideas. Surely one by the end of the year is something that you feel passionate about and want to continue kind of focusing on.
Something that I sometimes use is then if I have, let's say I have 3 different ideas and I'm not entirely sure, I don't know exactly how I feel about them. I often talk to someone about it. Someone that I either like as a person or someone that I respect artistically, perhaps someone I want to collaborate with. One time in a film market, I spoke with a distributor that I didn't really know all that well, but we seemed to gel, and they called me, what did they call me? A friendly pest.
I don't know if that's a dig or a good thing.
In a very loving way. And I just thought, look, I'm just gonna pitch a few projects to you and see what sticks. And then based on that conversation, I decided which one of my ideas at that point was worth pursuing into my next feature film.
I always wondered whether, like, actually, when you go to a distribution company or you know someone that works in distribution, whether it's sometimes worth just emailing them, being like, hey, what sort of content are you after? And then building kind of reverse engineering from that. But is that something that you'd recommend people do sometimes?
What
do you think?
Yeah, it could be. I know I've written a screenplay based on a conversation like that. And the screenplay was decent enough. It went into finals in a screenplay competition, so I don't think it was a bad screenplay. But having said that, I haven't really done anything with it ever since then. I tried to shop it around a little bit, but I wasn't passionate enough about it to make it myself. Not yet, anyway. Maybe I will one day. But yeah, so that might happen if it comes from someone else. That you might make something decent, but you're not actually feeling passionate about it, so then you don't end up making it.
Yeah.
Particularly when, if operating in this indie film world that I'm operating in, where it's just so much work that I'm doing. So if I don't feel passionate about it, then how am I going to get myself over that barrier of doing it or not doing it?
And it's like how you mentioned how they're kind of like your children. And I think that's totally true, because if you're an early stage filmmaker and you don't have a big studio that's going to pay for 100 people to do each individual job, you're going to be stuck with that project for, a year, maybe 2, maybe longer. And we spoke to a couple guests on the show that took almost 5 years to create a feature film. So when you do have your ideas, you need to make sure that you're really passionate about it and that you actually want to work on that.
Yeah, I think an average feature film takes about 7 years to make.
Oh my gosh!
From the idea to the releasing and completion of it. So 5 years is still under that.
Yeah, I don't feel so bad about being stuck on page 40 of my script now. 6 months later.
That's great. You've got 40 pages. That's 40 more than none.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of started as like 1 page a day for a while, and there's so many tricks to like script writing. I'm very much learning how to do that and getting better at it every day. But yeah, with the idea part, that's something that for me was slightly that shotgun approach that you sort of touched on. It's like try to come up with as many as possible. I think this notebook right here has maybe like 30 ideas, and I think all of them they're okay, but they're launch pads for something more unique. I think something to consider too, and this is a question for you, but with so much content out there, how do you stay unique? Like, how do you create something that hasn't been seen before? Or is that something that you need to actually be doing with your ideas?
I would say if you want to stay unique, try and live a unique life.
I love that.
Try and make choices that other people are not making. Try and make choices that other people are scared to make. try and make choices that for some reason resonate with your soul, even if they're not the ones that everyone else is making. I think that's maybe the only way of staying original is when you live through your life in an original way and a unique way. And something that you touched upon a little bit earlier was curiosity. And I think as long as you stay curious, ideas are going to present themselves from like life, and world around you is full of ideas, and it becomes more of a it becomes more of a process of just eliminating the bad ones.
Yeah.
Rather than being stuck for not finding ideas at all. I know at any given time I could have 10 films that I could start making now if I felt passionate enough about them. So for me, it's never the lack of ideas. It's just more about then refining which ideas I care about enough to make. But yeah, living an interesting life, challenging yourself outside of your comfort zone, I think is very important.
Yeah.
I have never been in a comfort zone and felt very stimulated necessarily.
Yeah, sometimes like the challenges and the uncomfortable situations, they actually lead to the most amount of breakthroughs.
Yeah. And I'm not necessarily talking about struggle, because I know also when I had the most struggle in terms of financially or emotionally, they are also very difficult times to create and to have enough space for those ideas to really be nourished. So I'm not necessarily saying that you have to be, struggling to have ideas, but it's more just about, the challenging and the curiosity, and going where it's a little bit uncomfortable, and saying yes to more things, and just trying out things and doing something that people don't expect of you, because then if you do something unexpected, you get a lot out of people's reactions to what you just did. I mean, I would encourage any artist to live abroad for a while.
Yeah, different cultural experiences. I mean, they're known to shape your brain in completely different ways. I mean, I'm well traveled, you're very well traveled as well, and I think the way I think has definitely evolved from that. One of the things that I was thinking of was like when you're rebellious and how much you remember those stories sometimes. Like when I'm not saying when you're on the verge of getting arrested or anything. We're not.
Why not?
We're okay, maybe, but like let's just say you're clubbing or something, and then you have like a wild night where you end up in the ocean or something like that. As much as these things might be that rebellious side of you, I feel like those are the stories that you remember the most. They're almost like imprints that stay permanently, and I think those elements are what makes film really cool, like really unique and original. It's like when you start to tap into these experiences that you may have had over the course of your life, and actually the more rebellious you are, the more interesting you can kind of make your stories.
Yeah, definitely. But then listening to that, I'm hearing there's a lot of great exterior effects there, and definitely you need to get all that input from your exterior and from your creating your exterior to be so stimulating and so interesting. But then there's also the work that you do within yourself, and that's the self-awareness. And I feel like that again can give you more ideas and definitely can bring more depth into your work when you're self-aware of your own psychology, what triggers you have, what excites you, all of those things that are like deep down in your being a human. I feel like if you do that kind of very difficult work, whether it's through therapy, whether it's through other forms of self-exploration and really working with your own self, I think that's also super important for any artist out there.
Yeah, definitely. And with the kind of the staying curious, I think that's a really important one. I think sometimes the less you are a filmmaker, the better you can become a filmmaker by as a byproduct of that. So what I mean is when you are coming up with ideas or trying to be original, you could potentially get more life experience by traveling abroad. And as a result, you'll become a better filmmaker because you have different experiences and different perspectives that you could put into your work, thus making it even more different than what you initially intended, perhaps, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And like do jobs that you didn't expect to do, to take on tasks that you didn't expect to do, and particularly meet people. Just make sure you meet people that you didn't expect to meet in any way or form that you can. And meeting people is not difficult.
Yeah.
You just walk out into the world and you just walk out of your comfort zone, and the ideas will just come. They will just float at you, and then you just become this vessel to deliver those ideas to other people to see.
Hell yeah. Where did your ideas come from for your films? Let's talk about the short films, because we've spoken a little bit about the features and we can get to that. But with short films, a lot lower time frame for like creating a film idea. So there's less pressure to make sure that it's something that you're super, super passionate about. But where did the initial film ideas come from for your 5 short films?
So for the short films, they were all different. So some of the ideas were something that I had been thinking about for a while, and then formed that way. But a few of my shorts I also made as a part of a time challenge. For example, like a 48-hour film festival, where within that limited time of one weekend, you have to come up with the idea, then actually make it, then complete it, then release it. And again, they can become really good films when you have got that frame line of timeline, and you have to make it very quickly. A couple of really good films have come out that way as well. So yeah, some of them have been longer ideas, others have been very quick, instantaneous ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the 48-hour challenge. I think those are great for filmmakers because sometimes we get so caught up in trying to perfect everything that then you get kind of paralysis, from overthinking. And I think having those smaller time frame challenges, or even forcing yourself, instead of doing 48 hours, doing a 2-week challenge where you get everything done and edited. I think that's such a powerful tool for filmmakers to just like get your work out there and really start pushing through.
And then I've found a great thing called Kino Network that started in Canada 25 years ago and now operates in, I think, 100 different chapters around the world. And that's a little bit like those time challenges, but there's no competition. It's just a lot of filmmakers coming together to make films. And here in Melbourne, where I'm based, it's called Filmonic. And yeah, once a month we run like a short film event where people can show their work. But then once or twice a year, we have this amount of time, say anything from 3 days to 10 days, when we just make films with each other. And it's the same kind of thing. You make them quickly, but with no competition. So in many ways, that for my soul, it sort of speaks even louder than some of the 48-hour film competitions.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That's such a great networking tool, I think. I feel like most cities have stuff like this. And if you're savvy, you can go on Facebook and find groups where all these filmmakers want to create stuff all the time. And a lot of the time, money's not an issue at all. People will volunteer to be on your films. And I think that's wonderful. I think the more you chat to people in your network, the better suited you'll be in creating unique ideas. I think that's just the nature of it.
Yeah, something I would also say is that go to everything. Some of the best films I've seen have been films that only get the one Q&A screening at the small local cinema, and then you can never see them again because they're great films, but distributors don't see them as market-wise films that would be able to make money. So then they don't get distribution. For example, my favorite Australian film, Zelos, very difficult to find anywhere because it didn't receive a wide enough distribution.
Yeah.
But the only reason I saw it was because I was following various different cinemas, see what events they had, mainly through social media, following their events, and went to every Q&A session that I could find of Australian or internationally made films. And yeah, that has been such a massive contributor in terms of meeting people, in terms of seeing what other people are making, in terms of seeing original films, the ones that don't get the mass distribution, the ones that deserve to be there with Oppenheimer and Barbie, but just don't get there because distributors don't believe that they would be interesting enough for people.
A lot of the time it's because they don't have these bankable actors or a bankable director. And that's a really hard ceiling to cross, I think, to really kind of break down. And I honestly, some of the best films I've seen were at film festivals. I think there's so much hidden talent. And it kind of makes me frustrated about the mainstream sort of content that we get to see because it feels very, very copy-paste. And I think a lot of people think that as well. So I wish more independent filmmakers got their opportunities to get mainstream attention. It's such a shame sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that there was just more distribution funding available that independent filmmakers could apply for directly. Of course, the festivals that you said, that's a great resource of seeing films, but even some of them are very mainstream now. And very difficult for someone without those name actors, what you call bankable actors, to get your work seen by film festivals even can be difficult. So if only there was this distribution fund for us that are kind of in the indie area of filmmaking and that we could have more access to audiences. And then I just believe that when audiences saw that work, they would be able to say, yes, we do like this. We want to see more of this. We want to see more unique content. Because every time I talk to someone about big streaming services, they're like, I can't find anything on Netflix I want to watch.
Yeah.
There's nothing in there. And someone like me can't even get access. I don't know how to talk to Netflix. I don't know. There is no submission. I can't send my stuff for them to see. So it's not possible for my films to be in there.
Exactly.
So there's this, it's just two are not meeting.
I hear that all the time. I hear it all the time when I talk to people. There's always I don't know what to watch. There's nothing I want to see on Netflix or Stan or Disney, whatever. Insert the streaming service name. And it's weird because obviously there's so much content on there. It's almost like an endless supply of things that you can see, but I just don't find it interesting, even personally. I'm struggling, and it feels like a lot of the movies are shot very similarly. There's like not really a lot of risks being taken. So yeah, there's a disconnect. I think audiences want this and Netflix is like here. But then there is that gap.
I really hope that we can move on from this thinking that only big actors or mainstream ideas are bankable.
Yes.
And really just go into authenticity, originality, uniqueness. And if exhibitors and distributors could see the value in those things, I believe that our viewing experiences would be vastly different and we would be given so much more diverse material than currently we are being given.
I 100% agree. I love this. I have one more question and then we can wrap it up. With obviously the funding is obviously a really hard task for a lot of filmmakers. But a lot of the time, I think the funding sources have perhaps things that they would like to talk about or ideas that are currently hot at the moment. So I'd love your opinion on whether a filmmaker should base their ideas and what they bring forward to the world on, I guess, what the funding people or the funding sources want to display or show.
I mean, it's a difficult question because I'm going to go back to that everyone's guesstimating all the time. And even at that level, people that make funding decisions are guesstimating what the audience will want at all times. And when I think back to films that I really enjoy myself, most of them are by writer-directors. Most of them are author-directors that have got a single vision and they go towards that vision without too much input from external voices outside of them. And those are the art pieces that I really enjoy watching. And I believe those are the kind of unique works of art that film industry at its best can be.
Yeah.
And if you take in too much input from the funding body that's guesstimating what the audience wants, you might end up with something very generic.
Yes.
Because within that funding body, there's different people and they can't agree with each other. But then they have to give you advice and guidelines on what to do. And I know one short film that I worked with had several different producers. And that was such a difficult process because they couldn't agree with each other. So then for me as a director, it was very difficult to deliver something. The film actually became decent enough, luckily, but it was a very difficult process to deliver it when like the external forces couldn't agree with each other. But then of course there is that somehow we need to get funding and that's the very difficult and in that process you have to accept some external voices, you have to accept funding bodies giving you these guidelines and sort of put you in the box within which you can operate.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. And again, I'm just calling out for more funding for independent filmmakers that would just be trusted with their process. Because I believe that there are people out there like myself who find it very difficult to explain what the work is before they actually make the work. They have all these unique ideas. They have ability, they have access to people, they can create work, but they just need resources, and they just need resources that don't judge them at every part of the journey. Because if you get judged at every part of the journey, that journey is going to look very different than if you just get to make it. You know which journey you're on as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, and all you need is help from other people or help from resources to get there, to get to your destination. And look, for me, that would be the answer. How do we get there? Hopefully someone in the funding body can come up with how to logistically make that happen.
I think to be honest, I can probably summarize everything into authenticity and freedom. I think you need to be able to tell stories that are authentic to you, and that could mean, writing stories that really are attractive to you and not really what the world says. And I think by chance you'll probably make something that an audience will love because you will love it, and then you also have the freedom. I think too many bodies are too caught up with trying to control every part of everything, and I think
Absolutely.
That just takes the fun out of it.
Yeah, and if you try and please everyone, and that's what I think often kind of more mainstream art projects are doing, and all of these voices are giving an input, and because they try and please everyone, often you end up with kind of a mishmash of a product that doesn't really actually please anyone anymore.
Yeah.
It's just this compromise, and it's something, but is it art? Is it unique? Is it authentic?
I love it. I think that's honestly such a great place to end the podcast, because you need to be authentic and be true to yourself and create art. You got to create art. That's what we're in it for. We're not in it for big bucks and fame and whatever. You're here to make really cool stories that resonate with people, and most importantly, resonates with you. Because if you're not happy with the film you're making, what's the point? Thank you so much, Sara, for joining us. You've been such a wonderful guest. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us on the Creative Constitution podcast. This was such a juicy one. I love it.
Thank you so much for having me. It means a lot.
Where can people find you?
So find me on social media, Instagram or Facebook, Saara Lamberg, or you can follow one of my films. There's Innuendo, there's Westmark Effect, and there's The Lies We Tell Ourselves. Follow any of those on social media, or feel free to send me a message if you like.
Hell yeah, reach out, and I will put all of the links in the show notes.
And watch the films. Try and find a way of watching them.
Yes, watch the films. We'll try and put as many links as possible in the show notes so that people can find them.
Amazing.
Thank you again so much, Sara.
Thank you.
And we'll catch you in the next one.
Bye.